Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Hello, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am so excited about today's show, but before I want to start the show, I do want to make two announcements. First of all, I'd like to start the show, and I think my guest and I are going to get into this conversation, but by requesting that you send prayers, light, love across the world. I'm asking for this, not for me, but there's so much strife. There's so much going on between the wars and the famine and the financial insecurities and the mass shootings. And it goes on and on and on. And so many people are being affected. So let's send this and help heal them, all of them, so that when they can make their life the life they're divinely meant to live, just like you are. And the second thing is it helps with karma. So they don't have to come back with PTSD before they've even started their life. So let's work together with that, please. The next announcement I'm going to make is Halloween is over and the holiday season is upon us. So check out my book, My Fucking Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path. It's the story of my life, story about what I went through, all my dysfunction and how I healed from it. In the back of the book, I have to get to the back of the book, tips, tools, and techniques to help you on your healing journey. All right, now getting to my guest. I don't want to keep her waiting too long because she's lovely, the most sweetest, gentlest energy. You're just going to love her. Her name is Tracey Ash, and Tracey is a mystic, healer, timekeeper, gatekeeper. She lives in the Temple of Medinet Habu in the magnificence of ancient Egypt. That sounds so lovely. With her Siberian husky, Anubis Bowie. I think I said that right. Ash consciously creates retreat hotels and medicine for awakened soul. Since 1999, curating international pilgrimages and educational events merging ancient history, human rights, genius time, prophecy, and mysticism. In 2018, Tracey was invited to the United Nations for her inimitable work on contact and consciousness. Ash's collaboration includes Sony CEO Shiroho Tenge on science and spirituality, her Image One Earth United Emoto Foundation, Bruce Lipton, and Thrive. In addition, Ash worked at the College of Psychic Studies. She worked with the PSI Japan Science Institute as an honorary member and Conscious Life Expo. In 2022, Tracey was invited as the first global leader Artemis social impact cryptocurrency. And we're going to find out way more about some of these things through this conversation. Welcome, Tracey.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
I'm so glad you're here. And I looked at your website and you put on some incredible retreats in Egypt, which I know we're going to talk about later. But I want to find out your path to begin with. Telling people how you started. Were you a natural born psychic medium, or is it something that came a little bit later in life and you were trained more, or because you were born with it, you knew about it but wanted to hone your skills?
Okay, interesting question. I mean, I was pretty much born as a physical medium. And so I had contact experiences, I had experiences with spirit that I understood very clearly early on. So born into life with my purpose, understanding light, spirit, programs, even the matrix. I was an incredibly silent child, massively high sensitivity. So my path work as a medium, as a healer, it developed over time and intensity. I believe our destiny is timed and our life events direct us. So as I entered my 17th year, I dreamed the death of my grandmother and prepared her for death as her gatekeeper. That automatically placed me into mediumistic circles. And I started my journey at 17, my training journey at 17. So almost 40 years, my life has been dedicated to the journey of spirit and the journey of soul and the magic of it.
And it is magic, isn't it? I mean, I feel it's magical.
It is, and I believe that our sacred pathways, these are the pathways that lead us to the guidance for peace and healing trauma, healing the wound, elevating our intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our intellect, so that we can create the solutions for humanity. So spirit for me is fully functioning our human experience. It activates the soul, our soul lessons, our sacred timelines, and our connection with spirit is so protective and so sovereign. Yes. That how I appear is extremely peaceful. But when spirit is engaged with, in terms of the protection of humanity, the protection of innocence, the protection of my path, my sovereign path, spirit will engage to oversee that protection in incredible miracles and in incredible ways.
So Tracey, I have a quick question. You said the protection of humanity. And I know you were talking about a different path, but with what's going on, how does spirit protect humanity with I don't remember a time in our lifetime that has been there's been so much unrest on so many levels in so many areas, and so many people are being affected, not just from the wars, but I mean, these people who are taking an anti-Semitic stand and abusing people because of what's going on in Israel and in Gaza, etc. How does that work with spirit in protecting the humanity?
It's an extremely serious and complex question. In terms of my own perspective on these matters, I've been heavily involved in research in ancient Egypt on these questions. So fundamentally, my own journey is about truth and equality and discovering the reality of why we are here as humanity on Earth. So my incredible research started with heavily walking the ancient temples, the gateways, the stargates, the vortexes, and listening for the truth, listening for the ways in which we can deeply understand humanity and deeply understand why there are two timelines, why humanity is being hijacked, why programming exists. Now, this landed me into opening my first stargate at the Medinet Habu, which is a temple which is laid on one of the most ancient gateways of ancient Egypt. So it's ancient Luxor, but it's set on the stargate of a creation story, a creation myth, which speaks very loudly of our human origins and very loudly of contact, gateways, timelines, the gods. It's extremely complex, but the creation stories and the creation mythology, this gives us a map of our human evolution. And this is where my unique research actually identifies the temples and the pyramids field as a stargate, yes. However, at the same time, they're also maps of our own soul journey and our own evolution as well. So I work with the architecture of the soul. And so I look at that individualistically, so for an individual, and then I also look at it collectively. My research has also taken me into looking at, for example, the Dendera zodiac as well. The Dendera zodiac is a very important humanity and evolutionary device which tracks the evolutionary story of humanity. So think about this, that spirit is very strongly connected with my story, with my research. Spirit lands me in incredible sites. And sometimes when we land in incredible sites, we don't know where to start. However, Spirit knows where to start the journey of looking. So it's taken me to extraordinary sites, extraordinary stories, extraordinary evidence, extraordinary gateways. And in terms of that, then that becomes the medicine. And it becomes the crystal ball, if you like, in terms of being able to scan and detect the story of humanity. So spirit for me looks into time in many directions. And when we are truly connected with spirit, like, for example, what is taking place on the planet is visibly described in ancient Egypt.
Wow. Okay.
And this is something I've been actively working with. In fact, it's one of the reasons my work is so strongly focused on ancient Egypt. I run very much on my past life memories. I am a gatekeeper, and I was a gatekeeper in ancient times. I incarnate to also at the same time be a custodian of humanity. The point of exploring this research is to not only understand what is taking place now, and to witness what is taking place now. We're also being called to a massive historical event in terms of our evolution and our spiritual lessons as a collective. This includes everyone, by the way. This is what is incredibly important, is that the spiritual lesson unites each one of us. There's the diversity, there's the inclusion, there's the place in which we can build and find bridges to unite humanity. So this is all documented and written into these mythologies and written into these texts that are written into the temples in many locations. I mean, this is a vast subject. So as we move through the interview, I'll refine how much information I give because, of course, the subject is so vast.
And it is vast. Go ahead. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We continue with something.
Yeah, sure. So what I would just like to say, the ancient Egyptians were not only time travelers and able to write prophecy with incredible precision, also timekeepers. They were also able to materialize timelines based on their understanding that humanity would go wrong. Now, this again is written into the Dendera zodiac. It's written into the texts at the Temple of Hathor, Dendera. And so my research is very much focused on this timeline split that humanity went into during ancient times. Now, if any of you have an interest, for example, in the depletion, the removal of the goddess, then that also comes into the science on how time has been manipulated, which also at the same time can largely control the wound. So, as you know, at this time, the melting pot, there is so much more than this lifetime that needs to be recalibrated. And so the world is currently under so much pressure in that very condensed spiritual lesson and need to heal the trauma that has been carried through many lifetimes. Now, in ancient Egypt, it's very clear that the ancient Egyptians were incredibly aware about the cycles of incarnation. This is, for example, a science for the ancient Egyptians. Time is science for the ancient Egyptians, as is spirit, as are gateways, as is contact, as is understanding the soul journey. Now, this isn't any kind of new age leaning, because, of course, what is fundamental to ancient Egyptian mythology is that the foundation of modern psychology is based in ancient Egypt. It's based in the Book of the Dead. So, as souls on a planet at this time, we are in a massive deficit of the soul. And this is why the planet is not sustainable. This is why people are not sustainable emotionally. This is why people remain programmed. This is why people have an addiction to entertainment, an addiction to social media, all of these things. So we look outwards. And of course, as you know, our spiritual lesson is to look inwards.
Yes.
Is to question why we are attaching ourselves to the hypnosis of, for example, artificial intelligence. Why are our lives being driven by a simulation? And that is also a big cost on, for example, mental health and our human connections. So we need human connection, or the mental health implications of this are going to be disastrous. So I speak incredibly clearly. My work is metaphysical. However, the work of spirit, when we are truly connected, is scientific and genius, and it sees. And so it creates no divide within the context of who we are and what the language of the soul is. And that part is important because spirit sees this, and spirit will respond to you in terms of what you need as soon as you start to really listen and move into those directions with soul, with spirit. And this helps us enormously to remain in balance in these challenging times. I do a lot of work on how we find our axis of power, because of course the external is so constantly chaotic. I mean, and again, the ancient Egyptians created the temples and the stargates in order to create the physical architecture where there is no chaos. So these elements are very important, and those elements actually bring in the elements of the goddess. They bring in the elements of the mat. So if you know anything about, for example, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that's also a foundation for all metaphysics within the context of our Western understanding. So when we heal, the human heart begins to take flight. The soul begins to take flight. This activates, initiates the gateways of metaphysics. And I think ultimately we've lost the science in metaphysics. We've lost the science of spirit. We've lost the psychology, the sense, the truth of working with spirit. And when we have that, and the ancient Egyptians knew that, that's why the magic is so deep, and it cannot be separated from psychology. It can't be separated from science. It can't be separated from this reality. So my very purpose in terms of my journey is to ensure that people are returned to that axis of power. This is what we've lost. We've lost our axis, who we are. And I believe that artificial intelligence is problematic within the context of that axis of magic and genius, and not simulating our existence on the planet, but fundamentally recognizing that our lives are timed, our destiny is timed.
Yes,
And
it
this
is.
part is, yeah, I know that I can see you very clearly. Yeah.
It's what you're saying is so powerful. So for somebody who has not become introspective, have gone inside for spirit, for themselves, how do you talk to someone and say, have you tried this? Or this is what I would suggest you do, so that you can meet yourself again, because we give away our power so often to other people. I feel that, so for example, that group in the Middle East that's they just don't, they just are like lemmings. They follow a leader. They don't follow their heart. They don't follow their guidance. They don't trust themselves. This is what I'm feeling. So how would you talk to someone about saying, meet yourself again? Reintroduce yourself to your soul, because I really feel that people put up blocks through that external noise.
Yeah, and of course it is noise, and it is unquestioned programming and unquestioned belief structures, and so we create what the system wants us to create as well, without taking any kind of personal responsibility. As you know, spiritual awakening is a calling.
Yes.
And so when you are called, take the breath and discover a mentor, and a mentor with legacy who can guide you through the healing of the programs, the healing of the blind spots, the awakening, so that you are in safe gateways of development, emotional intelligence, your psychology. I mean, our human architecture. We need to look at the soul and consciousness and prioritize that. So, for example, some of my best conversations with people, they're timed. And I show up, and that conversation, there's an exchange in terms of not only information and sharing, but support too. So, for example, when we have real human conversations,
Yes.
and we speak about ethics and values, it's here, this is where the golden gate of spirit is, the golden gate of humanity. It's the golden gate of the soul. And it's how we identify as human beings without the distractions, without the attachments, without the addictions, and having that courage not to keep running. And this is one of my big focuses, that I hold space and I help those. And if I can't hold space enough, then every gateway that has been initiated and is available to me, then every gateway is called to assist in holding another human being. So we must get to people and places who and where we can find ourselves in a space that holds us.
Wow, that's so powerful, and it's amazing. I need to change the direction because I know you do a lot of this in Egypt, and you have some amazing retreats for 2024 that sound phenomenal. Let's talk about these retreats, what you do on them, what can be expected, and let's talk about the draw as to why this is so important for humanity to bring people into these retreats for their teaching, for their initiations, etc.
I'm probably the only wisdom keeper and gatekeeper that is working with such a depth of knowledge on ancient Egypt and consciousness and the time that we exist in now. So I'm just going to run back to my research in terms of ancient Egypt. I am aware that everything that is happening on the planet coincides with this 26,000 year cycle. So that too is part of a time gateway. Now, in terms of my retreats, I'm aware as a facilitator who is recalibrating the soul, the existence, the trauma, the wounds, the soul path work. And so each individual that I work with is uniquely met and facilitated. So I will not work generically. I stay clear of jargon. I stay clear of trends because, like you, I am very dedicated to working with spirit. And for me in ancient Egypt, I'm very dedicated to the truth of ancient Egypt because this eclipses what mainstream spiritual community understand about Egypt. And where we head into both the magnificent healing and awakening of the soul. This is the initiation paths that I offer in my retreats. And that takes individuals on the kind of pilgrimage that then becomes a sovereign path of existence and service for humanity during these times, whatever your path is. So again, I step away from anything that is trend-based and generic, and I'm extremely interested in unveiling the power of the soul of the individual, recalibrating timelines, recalibrating an individual's connection with spirit and God. And that takes an individual into this incredible recalibration with this massive 26,000 year cycle. So it also remedies the wounds that we carry over previous incarnations. So when our timelines are recalibrated, we have all of this power and light and gateways and contact, this force of the universe contained within our human experience. This is what ancient Egypt is so good at. It's the science of the macrocosm, the microcosm, and getting it right perfectly within the context of who you are.
It sounds lovely. Do you help your retreat attendees to figure out which is the best? Because you've got, I think it was 6 various retreats for 2024, but they focus on a little bit of different things for each one. So so if someone says, I don't know what to take, can you feel in and then say, from what I'm feeling, you should take the raw mystery? Or
Sure. I mean, we have, for example, Eye of Ra tour, and because I do so much work in, for example, Japan, that particular tour is created for Japanese and internationals. So we have this transcultural experience, which I absolutely love because it's much needed within the context of our experience as human beings. That focuses on activating our inner eye, so the psychic school, and then being able to really progress our own spiritual intelligence, integrate it, whilst at the same time initiating and activating psychic intelligence, whether that's in the form of intuition, channeling, contact. And the other element, of course, of my work is when we have contact, and I mean when the gateways are being activated, where we experience star fleets, then those journeys are met with evidence and materializations. So I have a huge spectrum of metaphysical training that comes into almost every part of the tours that I work with. I understand the cult of the goddess. That's another element of my work, and how that materializes as regards to our own power, our own freedom within the context of the matrix. So there is a lot of focus into how we exist within the context of the matrix, how we clear our programs, how we return to light, how we return to understanding the real mystery of who we are, and really beginning these journeys from a place of massive authenticity. In January is the Eye of Ra. I also have individual retreats for individuals who really just want to work with me on a one-to-one basis. So that would be a personal mentoring and healing and awakening program specific to that individual's soul journey. The other teacher I'm working with in February is Dr. Linda Backman, and she's a specialist in past lives. She's recognized me as a gatekeeper, as fundamental in the awakening. Her work is on interplanetary souls and the journey of the soul. So that work fits into the model of my work. And so some of my retreats are in collaboration with some of the most incredible pioneers in the field. So I look to work independently with ethics always. And at the same time, in my collaborations, I work with individuals who have reached a particular legacy and who are working with ethics and working towards assisting individuals in their service to humanity. And that is the ultimate goal, that we can be the change, that we can create change.
Yes.
This is the most important part of it. So in all of the projects that I do, it's always about creating the gateways of freedom so that people can truly be the change and truly understand. When we dismantle the illusions, the distractions, the addictions, when we truly commit to healing ourselves in whatever way, and we then are capable of moving into the momentum so that we're powerful enough to stand up to the systems, the manipulation, the injustice, all of those things. So when we're in a retreat that is ethical, spirit accompanies those ethics, and it helps us to create the architecture of our own human values, which I believe is pivotal. So of course we can have an interest in metaphysics, in the soul, in spirituality, but if we do not have a foundation and an architecture of ethics and values, then we're not going to be able to make an impact. So this is one of my absolute passions, is generating individuals and communities so that we can stand together united and hold what has been prophesied in almost all of the prophecies across the world that are held by indigenous gatekeepers, that these times are challenging, is the spiritual lesson for humanity. However, we have an appointment, a lesson with destiny. So we have massive spiritual potential. And that's what my retreats ultimately do, is take people into the choice. And as a gatekeeper, I show people their choices. And then I facilitate and assist them in terms of their training so that they have the tools to be that change and the tools to be able to recalibrate when the world is crazy. And it has been very intense.
Yes.
And it's intense for the best of us. I mean, currently I am very aware of the impact it is making on individuals who are incredibly sensitive and hardwired to be that change.
Yeah, hardwired. I like that. I
Yeah.
need to take a break 1 second. It's charity shout out time. So this is my way of promoting the not-for-profits, the charities that my guests find near and dear to their heart. So yours is the Red Cross. Why the Red Cross? I mean, I know why, but why?
Yeah. I mean, I've been following very carefully the Middle East crisis, Palestine and Israel.
Yes.
And through the efforts of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent organizations, the real gateway of humanity, the capability to be able to stand in all stories and all narratives and stand up for human aid, stand up for the children in particular, and stand up for every individual on the planet who was calling for peace when our leaders are in confusion and our leaders cannot be clear about human value. So the Red Cross has been intrinsic for me in terms of really becoming a voice for the innocent and a voice for the innocent across the world. And in their diplomacy and in their presence, I believe that the message is for peace. And so we need to listen and unite with what we're finding in our hearts in terms of human value. There's a real peace movement taking place on the planet. So our commitment to, for example, charity, I believe it cannot start unless we're in that peace movement ourselves.
Yes, it's true. It's so true. We have a couple of messages. James has said, so many pathways are reconnecting and remembering. You met Sherry Jewell at a conference in Northbrook, Illinois. And there's a Trisha Reed who went to Egypt with you. Life-changing. Love you, Ash, is what she says.
I love her so much.
I think there's a mutual admiration society going on here. So that's beautiful. So I wanted to share some of these messages with you. I also didn't want to move on without talking to you about, you have classes that are going on this year. Will you be repeating these classes next year?
Yeah, I mean, I've been delivering classes since 1999. So I have multiple schools. I have soul school and I have a psychic school as well. The training that I offer is massively innovative and it is very clearly scientific so that individuals are building their field of awareness and power and reinforcement so we can be really present in truth. So my work with spirit is about truth. It's about winning despite the odds, despite the control, despite the challenges. And it's about taking people really strongly into a strong spiritual core, whether it's through my psychic school or through soul school. And each of those gateways give people the skills, the tools, the power, the initiation to discover the answers. And then also at the same time to reinforce the spiritual power so that we can calibrate ourselves to our spiritual lessons, to the soul families that we've traveled with for an eternity, and weave the wound and weave the gateways and weave the connections, the bridges between ourselves and our soul family, so we have the support, the community that we need.
And they sound like amazing classes. I'm listening. It's like, ooh, soul, psychic, skull, psychic. Ooh, they just sound
Yeah.
so full and bring you to a place that I think most of us want to be, which is in peace and joy and service.
I mean, peace is such a very profound spiritual place
Yes, it
to
is.
discover, uncover within yourself. It's a place of ultimate healing. And then it's that place where real metaphysics is unlocked. And that really is the genuine work of spirit, which is so delicate and so powerful and so perfect and so clear. And it's from that place of peace that nothing can destroy us. And from that place of peace, we also have choice. Because
Yes.
often we might be very dedicated to spiritual path work or psychic development or psychedelics, whatever it is. However, if we do not know how to keep peace with ourselves, then we really do not go deep enough. And you know about this because of your training and your journey, that peace is the philosopher's stone. It's the alchemist's gold. It's the magic. It's the resource that money can never buy. You can't put a price on that medicine. And that's what I believe real work with ethics and integrity brings, rather than a superficial journey that is designed for another human experience of entertainment. So our work must be ethical,
Yes.
and we must be guided to spirit. I mean, our movement has been incredibly distorted by social media, social media influences and trends, which don't necessarily work with the integrity that is required to be the change or to magnetize spirit, because you've done that work and you truly have built your human value on ethics. And that's when spirit roars through the silence of your own inner journey. And that's when your intuition doesn't falter. That's when your visions, your prophecy doesn't falter. That's when your readings do not falter. That is real training, and that is real initiation. And for me, it's very powerful. I mean, in my own journey, I am recognized as a gatekeeper. I often have indigenous gatekeepers who materialize when I am traveling at ancient sites across the planet, or even when I'm in ancient Egypt. There'll be opportunities with gatekeepers who are visiting Egypt and unsuspecting. The meeting is timed, and I think this is important. What will save humanity are ethics and human value. And what will protect humanity are those individuals who have ethics and values and who have a connection with spirit. Now, this is important, but what kind of connection with spirit? Is it a connection with spirit for entertainment, or is it a connection with spirit to serve our evolutionary path, to serve us when the world is clearly in need of healing, when humanity is clearly in need of healing?
Yes.
And spirit will protect you. And one of my big concerns is gateways, health, spirit. And where we have a modern movement of social media influencers, we also have a lot of work that is underdeveloped. Now, real gatekeepers and very well trained teachers like yourself, you understand that when you sit for spirit, you know that your gateway, your guides, your teachers, and as you go through that timeline, you know that across the universe, every teacher and every guardian stands for light and stands for human life and stands for evolution on the planet. And that's what makes us different. Those of us who are ethical, we know it's not about us. I know it's not about me. I know that I am simply a messenger because I've allowed my own temple to be the temple in which spirit, or the architecture in which spirit will speak. But because of the work that I've done, and because of the incarnations and the soul journey that I am awakened, I understand the gatekeepers that oversee the work and protect my sovereignty and protect the sovereignty of humanity too. So these elements or these discussions are so important. It isn't about any kind of superiority, no, because the world of spirit is an eternity. And so we are always learning. The world of spirit is unique. So it dismantles trends. It dismantles programming. So it allows us to see that we don't have to look the same, be the same, think the same. This is why spirit, the real work of spirit, and you know this, the real work of spirit. I worked at the College of Psychic Studies. I had access to their priceless archives library. I opened documents and I opened evidence, which was all about fusion and a meeting of spirit and spiritualism and science and politics of the late 19th century. Now, this takes us into truly recognizing that spiritualism and this field was created to serve humanity. And somewhere through decades of perhaps disconnect or complacency or artificial intelligence, we lost our way in our spiritual community. So people don't have the time to be still and sit because they don't value it. However, that is a principle of really being protected, being sovereign, being intelligent, being purified, being healed. I mean, you name it, every prayer in terms of your spiritual journey will be answered by those ethics.
I love that. Tracey, I hate to do this. I need to wind up the show. I could listen to you. I could communicate with you for hours because what you're sharing is so powerful, so important, so enlightening. It like opens up a window of people's understandings that they might not, which were they had their shade closed for so long and couldn't understand why it's so dark in the room. You open up that shade. So I appreciate you so much. And I would love to have you back because you have so much to share. And I'd love for you to share with my audience.
Thank you. I've loved you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time and the fact that you're, in Europe and it's later there. So I appreciate you giving up a little bit of evening time to be with me. So
Thank
so
you.
grateful. I want to thank Bridget. All you do for me, right hand, left hand. Thank you so much. To you, the listening audience, I need to say thank you to you because you took time out of your day, out of your life to be a part of the show. Whether you're on live with Tracey and I, or whether you're listening to a replay, this is time we want to make valuable for you. Valuable information, valuable insights. And I think today's show has really addressed that. So thank you. I want to talk about next week's guest. It's Austin Wells, the spiritual medium and soul gardener. So I invite you to come back for that show. I also want to remind you one more time, it's the holiday season, so don't forget those you love who might need help and support. My book, My Fucking Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path, is available on my website, which is MarlaGoldberrg. Goldberg has 2Rs.com, or on Amazon. So thank you for that. And as I leave you, as always, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. Know how grateful I am that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. For not only are you my student, you're my teacher. Not only am I a teacher, I am a student, and I'm a student of yours. So thank you. And I'm going to say these 3 little words that I'm going to put out to you that I always say, which is I love you. You are loved, not just by me, not just by family, friends, colleagues, community, but you have a plethora of beings on the other side of the veil that are your biggest cheerleaders, and they want to see you heal. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you live your life in the divine way it was meant to live. You are loved. So talk to your beings on the other side so they can go and conspire on your behalf, so they could help to bring to you what it is you need, want, and desire. Couple of caveats. Number 1, be detailed. They need to know in detail what you need, want, and desire. Because if you say, I need money, you might find a penny on the ground and they might think, but that's money. Well, if you need a certain amount, talk about it in certain denominations. I need $100. I need $1,000. And let them go out and bring it to you in whatever fashion they bring it to you, as well as other things. And know that if it doesn't come in a timely manner, go inside and see if there's something you need to do to move the boulder over to allow the flow to come to you. All right, I will see you next week. Until then, have the most incredible week. Those in the snowy areas, please be safe and put a blanket, candle, matches, and food and water in the car, not just for you, but for your animals if they travel with you. So if something happens, you can stay safe, you can stay warm, you can stay hydrated, and so can your little pet companions. All right, I'll see you next week.